This is Welsh ASMR 82. Hey, how you doing? So it occurred to me that I'd done the Interesting Maps video series on Africa, Asia, North America, but I still haven't done South America and Europe. I've also done an extra one on the UK as well. So let's do South America, and then the next time, next month, one of the final parts of this series, we will look at Europe. So what are we going to do in this ASMR maps video today? We're going to look at loads of interesting maps of South America together. So this is going to be a very informative ASMR video to help you relax and fall asleep. And I'm going to look at climate, biomes, rainfall, wealth, population growth, and population density. And I suppose this would be, is this topography, where you look at the highland and the lowlands. Let's first of all look at a political map. In other words, look at a map of the official countries of South America, and we'll go through them and their capitals so we can make sure that we are acquainted. And if you enjoy this video, and maybe if you speak another language, you want to check it out on my Spanish channel, and I also did this video on my Portuguese channel as well, so check those out. See if I remember to put a link somewhere. Okay, so Brazil. We can't talk about South America without first mentioning Brazil, the largest country by landmass and population in South America. Obviously the second largest river in the world, the first being the Nile, although the amount of water that it carries actually puts it in first place. Someone pointed that out to me in a comment recently, thank you. And around it, the lungs of the earth, the Amazon rainforest, I think is the largest rainforest in the world. Although I've got Borneo has some statistic, maybe it's the oldest. Okay, so this is Brazil, and the capital of it is actually Brasilia. This is really good quiz question because people always think Rio de Janeiro is the capital, or maybe Sao Paulo, but they often don't put down Brasilia. Those two cities are much larger in population than Brasilia. We'll take a look at that later. But Brasilia, yes, is the capital of Brazil. It's a fairly new city, in fact, compared to all of the others, which are mostly along the coast, and it was deliberately built inland. And the architect built it into a shape of a plane, I believe. Okay, then we've got Argentina. Argentina is an absolutely massive country, but due to the way that maps are drawn, because the world is round, it isn't often, it doesn't really come across that way, but it is huge. Argentina's capital is Buenos Aires. That's how it's pronounced. Buenos Aires. Good air or clean air. Buenos Aires. I've heard some horrific butchering of that place name. And across the border, across the river, the Rio de la Plata, is Uruguay, or in Spanish, Uruguay. The capital of which is Montevideo. Montevideo translates to something like view of the mountains. And Rio de la Plata, in between them, is the river of Silver. And as such, Argentina gets its name argent in French being silver. I think in Latin maybe it was argentum or something. So yeah, the land of silver. Brazil, I think, comes from the first explorers landed and saw a certain type of tree. I think it was named after the tree, or the colour of the tree in the local language. I can't remember. Okay, next we got Chile, which is a very long, thin country. I've heard it referred to as the spine of South America, but it looks like the backbone of the continent. And indeed, we'll see in a second here, the Andes Mountains runs right down and is a natural border between it and Argentina. We've also got Bolivia. Sorry, Santiago is the capital of Chile, sometimes called Santiago de Chile. Bolivia has La Paz, although Sucre does have some responsibilities as a capital, similar to the situation in the Netherlands, where The Hague has a lot of things that Amsterdam should have. I think the reason is La Paz is the highest, possibly one of the highest capitals in the world, and it's very difficult to get to. So a lot of the buildings in the parliament, I think, happens in Sucre, but I might be wrong. Paraguay is just here. The capital is Asunción. And Paraguay is one of the countries that has more than one official language. So not just Spanish, or in Brazil's case Portuguese. The language is Guarani, an indigenous language, particularly Paraguayan Guarani, because it's spoken in quite a lot of this region here. Some parts of Brazil also have it as speakers of the language, and northern Argentina. Then Peru, which again doesn't come across that big in the context, but actually I think it's bigger than France. Peru's capital is Lima. The smaller one here is Ecuador, named, I don't know about Peru, how that, I think, is named after someone, but Ecuador is named because it's on the equator, and that's the word in Spanish for equator, Ecuador. Capital is Quito. And then we got Colombia, which connects, because Paraguay borders it, South America with Central America. It's like the umbilical cord. The capital of Colombia is Bogota. Venezuela, with Caracas as the capital here. And all of these countries here have Spanish as their official language, but not these three. This Brazil has Portuguese. Lots of people get mixed up and think it's Spanish, but it's not. And then we've got Guyana, Suriname, and French Guiana. Guyana is an ex-British territory. Georgetown is its capital. So English is their language. Suriname, with Paramaribo, is an ex-Dutch colony, so they, amongst other languages, speak a form of Dutch. And this one's an odd one. French Guiana is France. Cayenne is the capital of the local capital, but technically speaking, the capital is Paris. This is the strange French system. I need to do a video on that. It's such a weird situation when you think about it. Yeah, but it's not an overseas colony, it is France. Okay, so here is what I was talking about. This is the Amazon rainforest, and the basin here, the Amazon. So we got the Atlantic Ocean on the east coast, and on the west coast we have the Pacific Ocean. And surprisingly, we're not far from the bottom here, Tierra del Fuego, the land of fire. This is an island that's got a strange split between Argentina and Chile. And from here down, the Antarctic is not far away, it's just out of sight here. So it says here there's the Scotia Sea and the Drake Passage, because before the Panama Canal, boats would have to come down here, where it's very icy and there are glaciers, in order to go around. So it's a very dangerous sea, very difficult to get through, as well as icy. So that was one of the reasons they built the Panama Canal, to nip through. Okay, let's take a look at these other interesting maps. It's another relief of land. We can see the Andes there. This is could be up to 1,200 feet above sea level, which is 4,000 meters. I think that one says 6,000. 6,500 feet meters. They have lots of conservatories, I believe, in this area of Chile, because it's so high up and the night sky is clearly visible. Temperature. So one of the things that always freaks me out, and I say this every time, is that South America is obviously in the southern hemisphere, which means that when we have winter, they have summer. But also, the northern part, as I hinted at earlier on, is on the equator. So this is 10 degrees above the equator, this is 10 degrees below. The Tropic of Capricorn is here. So the general temperatures in this area, the northern part, don't actually change that much, but there are seasons, and they do, for example, have a rainy season and a drier season, but apart from that they don't have a winter and a summer per se. My Colombian friend explained this to me. So, for example, in the north here we've got, my eyes can't see in this darkness, hang on, let me zoom in for a second. So I say, still can't see 16, and then 16, so it doesn't actually change from what we perceive as summer and winter. This is January and this is July. So we can see the vast majority of the countries in this northern part here have almost identical. But the more southerly we go, as I said, this is not far from the Antarctic. We can see that we do have a season. This part here, much warmer in January, but this part down here much colder in July, which, as a northern hemisphere living individual, that messes with my brain. It says the highest recorded temperature in South America was a place called Rivadilla, 49 degrees Celsius in January, whereas, and I believe that's in the northern part of Argentina, and Then also in Argentina, the lowest recorded temperature in South America is it Sarmiento? Minus 33. That's incredible. In terms of rainfall, we can see here Bogota. So the average monthly temperature doesn't go very far at all. In fact, it dips a tiny bit, maybe in July. This is January, this is December. So July, May, in the middle here. As we can see, that what I was saying is more or less correct, that there isn't a vast difference in temperature. It's all around the 10 to 20 degree mark on average. But precipitation picks up in April and then again in October, whereas it's relatively much lower in the summer months. Our summer in the northern hemisphere. The winter months of June, July, August, September. However, Brasilia, which is sort of few, capital of Brazil, has a lower temperature in June, July, and almost no rainfall in those months there between May and September, whereas in December it is incredibly high. And January is pretty high, January, February, March, and then it drops for the year. It picks back up in October, November, December. Buenos Aires has a much larger variant, more like a European country. 30 degrees in January, dipping to single figures, about 5 degrees in June. But rainfall is pretty static. It's it's between 50 and 100 throughout the year, peaking a little bit in March, and at its lowest in June, July, August. Lima, curiously, has very little rain at all. Manaus, also in Brazil, has a very large rainfall in January, February, March, April, and then dips. Okay, and then we can look at the map that displays that. So we can see that Lima, where we spoke about before, being very dry, is actually has a very low annual precipitation. These areas are they're not deserts per se. We can actually see a little bit more. They are actually down as a desert there. We'll come to the biomes in a second. So yes, apparently according to this they are designated as deserts due to their extremely low rainfall, between 0 and 250 millimeters per year. It says the driest recorded year in South America was in Quijagua, 0.5 millimeters, and that was in Chile, northern Chile. And it says the wettest recorded year in South America was Quibdó, with 8,990 millimeters, and that looks to be in Colombia. We can see that the Amazon rainforest obviously has a lot of rain. It's a rainforest, whereas the coastal regions not as much, particularly in the east towards Recife. And then in terms of the biomes, we got the Amazon basin here. We can see that is obviously tropical rainforest, all of that. The brown is the tropical thorn forest, and there are 2 of those. Temperate rainforest, so again, some more rainforest. Evergreen trees and shrubs. I'm trying to see where that colour is. I can't see that colour anywhere. Grassland and savanna, we do have some of that colour though. And the pampas of Argentina and Uruguay. Semi-desert in Patagonia because of the dryness. Actual desert in Chile, and I think that's Peru. and then alpine and high plateau in the Andes. There. So let's take a look then finally at population and wealth. Okay, so gross domestic product GDP in dollars per capita in 2013. So this isn't totally up to date, but still. So the darkest colour, which we don't seem to have any examples of, apart from maybe the Falkland Islands, maybe. Is it that colour, or is it that? Maybe, as the Falkland Islands is legally part of the UK, I think it's coming into over 20,000. But, sorry to the Argentinians watching the video, 10,000 to 20,000 for most of the countries, except for Bolivia, Paraguay, Guyana and French Guiana, which are in the 5,000 to 10,000 range. You can also see some info about Central America here, and the Caribbean. So you can see that they're towards the top end. I think Brazil and Argentina are classed as emerging nations, and they are economic hubs in this area, very important to the economy of the other countries. Okay, population. I'm quite surprised that the population of South America as a whole isn't that large in comparison to, say, Africa or Asia, to take two examples. Brazil is by far the most populated country. It has around 200 million, making it come in slightly lower than the USA. Whereas the next largest is Argentina, which actually only has 42 million, which is about half the population of France, despite the fact that it's a much larger area than France. And then the other countries come in a little bit lower. Venezuela, for example, is around 28 million. So, when you consider the fact that in Africa, Egypt has 100 million, Ethiopia 100 million, Nigeria 200 million. Those three countries alone, to begin with, have a potentially even larger population than the whole of South America. Let me just back up my facts a little bit, shall we? So we've got Ethiopia 93 million, I rounded it up, Nigeria 174, Egypt 85, Congo 75, South Africa 48. So even South Africa has a slightly comparable or larger, slightly larger population than Argentina. So that's something to consider. However, there are still very large cities. Sao Paulo is one of the largest cities in the world. It's got way over 10 million. Rio de Janeiro, second. And we talked about Brasilia, the capital, being much smaller, 2.5 to 5 million. Recife is between 5 and 10. It's one of the most populated. Fortaleza as well. Uruguay is a relatively small country. I think it's only got a couple of million, maybe 3 or 4, something like that. Montevideo is where the most of them live, so it's 1 to 2.5 million. So most of the population of Uruguay actually live in the capital. Argentina, of course, Buenos Aires is over 10 million, and other large cities, Rosario, Cordoba, Mendoza, but still they're only in the 1 to 2.5 million bracket. Chile has Santiago, its capital, as the largest, which it sort of makes up most of the cities in Chile are in this area anyway. So the larger area of the city actually includes several other cities. And this one has between 5 and 10 million. La Paz in Bolivia only has between 1 and 2.5. Lima, capital of Peru, is, I think that's 5 to 10. Now, yeah, Ecuador's situation, Guayaquil actually has a larger population than the capital, Quito. Quito's only got 1.1 to 2.5, whereas Guayaquil has between 2.5 and 5 million. And then Colombia, Bogota, which is a large one, over between 5 and 10. That's not over 10, is it? No, I think it's smaller. 5 to 10 million. Medellin, it's about 2.5 to 5. Cali, the same. And then Caracas, the same in Venezuela. And you can see that the three non-Spanish Portuguese speaking countries have much smaller populations. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about is those three countries, Venezuela, Brazil and Argentina. The population density, inhabitants per... Oh, sorry. So, let me just explain this graph. The top is 75 years and above, and they go in 5-year increments. So this is 70 to 74, and then all the way down here to 0 to 4 years old. The green is for males, and the pink is for women. And then we've got, I think this is percentage at the bottom. So 0 to 4. So this maximum is 5% approximately. So we can see that Venezuela has got a growing population to a point. They've got more children between the years of 0 and 19 years old, of male and female. As with most countries, there are more women still alive over 75 years of age than men, and this is quite a healthy growing population. We can see here each generation, the generation below it has a larger number. So that's sort of stopped over the last couple of years. And if we look at Brazil and Argentina, they have a very similar situation. More women above 75, particularly in Argentina. Much more women than men. But a growing population up to a point. It sort of stagnates around 25 to 29 years old, and between 30 and 34 years old in Argentina. So that tells me that so what you tend to find is emerging countries who come into a really high standard of living tend to have fewer children, which is, there are many factors behind this, and lots of people will confirm this in the comment section. It's to do with standards of living, healthcare, etc., job prospects, wealth. But it sort of suggests that Brazil and Argentina have hit a point where their population has started to slow down. It's a very common thing for European countries in the USA, Canada. I'll show you direct comparison. If I can find the right page on the line so I don't forget it. So you've got the USA. Oh, the USA is a very old one. It sort of suggests there's equal age in all the age groups below retiring age of 60, 55, 59, and then, yeah. Canada, no, actually, I take it back. Europe. Mexico's got a similar situation, as to the Bahamas, but Canada has got a weird situation there. Got fewer people having kids than before, and USA tends to have a little bit of an issue. I remember talking about this in the North American one and saying that's why Canada are advertising for immigrant workers. Whenever I go on the internet, I'm always asked, do I want to have a visa to go and work in Canada? The answer is yes, but not yet. And if we compare it with an African country, we're going to see a stark difference. So Nigeria, look at that, look at the difference. There are far more children under the age of 4 years old than any other generation. This is what we consider to be a booming population, because when these have children, it should continue to go like that. If each adult is having more than 2 children. So a couple have 1 child and it's a falling population. They have 2 children, it's a maintaining population. So that sort of is what's happening in the USA. We can see that they're having more than 2 children, easily 3 to maybe even more. And then if we compare that, I'll give you a sneak preview of Europe, even though we haven't done this video yet. What we should see, maybe I was wrong. France is going to prove me wrong, look. France is more like the USA. Germany less so, there seems to be a weird falling population. Italy, UK, and Russia, which Russia does have a falling population, we know that. We'll come and discuss that a little bit more in the next part of this series. That's very interesting. Let's go back then, 118. If anyone can explain it in the comments a little bit better than I can, I'd be appreciative. Okay, so that is South America. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, click that like button for me if you're still awake. I hope you're not. And drop me a comment. Definitely correct me. This is just my ramblings. I haven't done any research. It's just what I think I know. So if you think that I'm wrong, or if you know that I'm wrong, do go ahead and correct me in the comments. I will not in the least bit be offended. I want to try and learn whilst I do these videos too. And lastly, if you love what I do, subscribe to the channel. If you're already subscribed, like quite a few others this month, welcome. Join me on Patreon, where I do, from now on this year, an extra exclusive video, map video, which will never be released on this channel, per month, 1 per month, and a second video, which is a ramble video of me just chatting to you. So I get to 2 videos a month and early access to every single video on this channel as well. You get it a couple of days early. And all of the tiers give you the same, so consider joining me on Patreon. Info below. Okay, I hope you're all falling to sleep, and take care everyone. Hope to hear from you soon.